Hi there, Jeff Lerner here. In this video, we're going to be looking at my zero wisdom, which is a pun. It's not saying that there is actually no wisdom contained herein. Basically, I'm going to show you what I've learned at each stage going from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 figures. So at each leg up in that journey of adding a zero, so to speak, hence the name, there have been important lessons, I think. A little bit of super quick background. This isn't going to be one of those videos where I tell you my whole life story. I'm only going to share with you the bits that I think are necessary and relevant, create the context for the actual, quote, wisdom. I am the founder of Entre Institute. We're one of the fastest growing education platforms in the world. As far as I know, we are currently the largest that is dedicated to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial living. I'm the author of Unlock Your Potential, and I'm the host also of the Unlock Your Potential podcast and YouTube show. I appreciate if you decide to check me out and support. That's amazing. Thanks. The point here is for me to give to you as much as I possibly can. When I started this YouTube channel back in 2018, I guess, is when I really started investing in it. I think it existed before that, but I didn't do much with it. My initial goal was to create a YouTube channel based on everything I had learned that in terms of real world practical value was more valuable than an MBA, than a Master's of Business Administration for the person that wants to go out and be successful in the world of business. And also different from an MBA, it's completely free, right? My goal was to stuff my YouTube channel with so much value, completely for free, it was more valuable than an MBA. With this video, let me just say, I consider that to be a work in progress. I think we've made great strides. I think if I'll use my son, for example, if he's like, Dad, I really want to go out in the world and start a business and be successful and create my own path. I think that I could reasonably say if he consumed every video that's on this channel, he might actually have more real world knowledge to get started with than he would get through an MBA program. I feel pretty confident about that. But with this video, I'm upping the ante to say, can I make one single video that contains more accumulated wisdom? Obviously, it's not going to have the breadth or the depth of detail that you'd get from spending, years in a college program. But in terms of just, okay, I know what I need to do and I'm confident in my ability to go out and do it and execute and forge the life of my dreams. Could I make one single video that equips a person as well or better than an MBA program completely for free? That is the goal here. You will be the judge. By the time we're done, hopefully you'll let me know in the comments how I did. So that said, let's dive in. To start with, like I said, I'm only going to give you enough biographical background to give the context to make everything that I'm going to say in this video clear and make sense. I'm going to summarize now 26 years of my life in 5 minutes or less, or at least attempt to. Let's start with some basic stuff. I'm 43 years old at the time I'm shooting this. I'm married with 4 kids. That's important because along the way of what I've learned and what I'm going to share in this video, a big part of it is not just how to succeed in business or how to grow, start and scale and even exit a business, but how to kind of get to a place where you can do all this stuff and still have a life, still take care of yourself, still have fun, still go to the gym, still be with your family, still be with your spouse or partner. And, I'm not just married with 4 kids. I'm actually really involved with my spouse and my kids. I spend a lot of time with them. And so everything here is it's as much about balance as it is about excellence. I actually like the term balanced excellence as an approach to living. Business history. So I dropped out of high school in 1996. I was 17 years old at that time. Actually, I think when I dropped out, I was technically still 16, almost 17. It was my junior year of high school. I realized school is basically job training, and I have no interest in becoming, entering the traditional workforce and reporting into a boss. And I had one summer job and decided that doing what I'm told wasn't for me, which, maybe I was too rebellious for my own good, but that was just where I was at. So I dropped out of high school and became a musician. And for the next 12 years, I poured myself into being a professional working musician. As an artist, I played jazz. As a careerist, I played whatever they paid me to play, whatever paid the bills. I mean, literally, I played everything from blues to salsa to cocktail piano to jazz to classical. I accompanied for singers. I accompanied for ballet dancers. Anything I could get paid to play, I did. And it was a hard life. At one point, I was playing almost 400 gigs a year, making about 60 grand a year, 20 in tips, about 40 on paper. During that same time, I was always starting businesses. My currency of choice has always been freedom more than money. I want to be comfortable financially, but I want to be rich in terms of freedom. I never really cared about having gazillions of dollars, but I really cared about being in control of my life, right? That's why I didn't want to go work a job very early on. But I realized at a certain point that without enough money, you can only be so free. And I learned a lot of that from my clients, the people I played piano for. I played piano for a lot of really wealthy people. I'd go into their homes and I would look at their lives and go, these guys have all the freedom in the world because they have so much money. And so I got really interested in business and starting businesses. And I thought, okay, if I can succeed at business, I can have a lot more money, but still have my freedom. And I failed 11 times in 12 years. Finally, started to get some traction in 2008, was successful as an affiliate marketer for about 4.5 years. That's when I got to my first six-figure income level in 2009. From 2013 to 2018, I took those same skills and I applied them to servicing businesses, helping businesses grow their business. And in 2014, that's when I first achieved seven-figure gross income. In 2017, 2018, and you'll see more of this in the year-by-year breakdown, I also started my first education company. It was my first venture into entrepreneurial training, but I set it up as a direct sales model. The details of that don't really matter too much, but I will say that that's when I had my first eight-figure year. Technically, it wasn't 2018. It was actually from the middle of 2017 to the middle of 2018, and it wasn't quite eight figures. It was actually just under $9 million that I did in 12 months. But that was really my first taste of, okay, this is about what it looks like at that level. And then I wound that company down. I sold the agency. So in 2018, I kind of took everything off my plate. And in 2019, I started my current business, which is called or my main business. I have multiple businesses, but my main business, which is an education platform, entrepreneurial education platform model. And we are definitely worth nine figures. This year, we probably will fall a little short of nine figures in revenue. We certainly have it as in valuing the enterprise. We're at the scale now where I feel confident I can speak to what a business looks like at that level, even if technically we haven't reached that run rate yet. I think we will by the end of the year, maybe early next year. And that's where I'm at. Like I said, I can't speak to building $1 billion business yet. I'll get there when I get there. Again, everything on this YouTube channel is just me sharing everything I know. I want to be completely transparent with who I am, what I've done, who I'm not, and what I haven't done. A little more context along the way over the last 20 years, and most of it's frankly been more recent. I did technically start even back when I was a musician, buying a rental property or two here and there. I actually lost all of them in 2008 when I had some other stuff happen that the details don't matter. Long story short, I've accumulated about 30 doors, and roughly, I haven't had it appraised or valued, but I think more the market is right now. It's at the very high seven, maybe low eight figures in total real estate equity. I've been accumulating that for 20 years. Also, in the last couple of years, I've become a portfolio investor where I'm currently a partner in two other companies. I'm currently talking to two more companies, and I'm starting to build other businesses, essentially treat businesses as asset type investments and apply what I know to helping other people scale and so forth, right? And then some other relevant stuff. Total in the span that we're discussing, I've generated about $150 million in total revenue. I have a 313 batting average in terms of businesses. I have started 16 businesses that I've counted. There probably were other smaller ones along the way, but 16 that I've counted. 5 were successful, 11 were not. So if I was a Major League Baseball player, I'd be a pretty good hitter. Not a great one, but a pretty good one. Most of it's in real estate, not counting business equity. So for the 3 businesses that I have, not counting the equity in that, I have a low 8-figure, like a solid low 8-figure personal net worth, somewhere in the 10 to 20 million range. If I count my businesses, which those are chickens that you really probably shouldn't count until they hatch, because all my stuff is bootstrapped. I haven't done any venture capital fundraising, so I don't have benchmarks for valuations other than just what anecdotally, someone might say they're worth. But I would say if you count the equity in my business, I have certainly a high 8, maybe flirting with 9-figure personal net worth. So anyway, I want you to really, really know who I am, where I'm coming from, and what I have to offer based on what I've done. My goals, so you know where I'm going from here. I want to get Entre, my education platform, to 1 million active users. I want to build $1 billion enterprise value for this company in less than 10 years. I think that'll be a pretty amazing story that proves to the world about what's possible. I started the company with $20,000 on a credit card as an experiment. And if I can grow that to $1 billion enterprise value in less than 10 years with a $20,000 startup investment on a credit card, I think that's going to be some kind of record, some kind of true unicorn story that I think is important to achieve. I do have a 20-year plan. Actually, it's a 40-year plan. I'm about halfway through. And I want to achieve $1 billion personal net worth by 60 years old. And by the end of, I'm recording this in 2022. So by the end of next year, I'm working very hard to build a social media following across all the platforms of 10 million people. It's currently at about 300,000 between mostly YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. As you saw, currently I'm about to publish a book, or maybe when you're seeing this, that book is out, and I have a goal over the next few years. I believe if you write a good enough book, it gets better over time, to actually achieve #1 bestseller status in both the business and self-help category. So that's everything you need to know about me. That might have taken a little more than 5 minutes, but now let's get into the concepts and the lessons. So I want to present a key concept here called a full stack entrepreneur. There's a concept in marketing. You'll hear digital marketers talk about full stack marketers. These are people that, kind of know how to do all the things around digital marketing. They know how to write copy. They know how to run ad campaigns. They know how to build funnels. They know how to design pages. They know how to craft offers, right? I've heard people say full stack marketer a lot. I haven't heard people say full stack entrepreneur, but my intention here is to take that same concept of kind of a utility player, somebody that can do all of it. Maybe you're not the best at any of it, but you're pretty good at all of it, and apply that to entrepreneurship as a whole. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to break down all the functions again, and there's different specifics for different businesses and different business types and business cases, but at a general level, these are all the functions that you see typically inside of entrepreneurship. In other words, these are all the areas of competency that you would need to have to be a full stack entrepreneur. I think a full stack entrepreneur is the most secure, capable, valuable person on earth professionally, right? Like a full stack entrepreneur doesn't worry about what's going on in the economy. They don't worry about where they're located. They don't worry about the job market. They don't worry about a lot of the things that most people worry about, because they're kind of like, nobody's bulletproof, nobody's invincible, but a full stack entrepreneur is about as close as you get in the modern world. So that said, I'm going to walk through the structure, sort of the macro architecture of businesses now. These are very high level, like 50,000 foot, but within this, you'll see all the areas of competence and kind of like specialty categories that you would need to be good at to be a full stack entrepreneur. So there's revenue, the ability to get money to come into a business, which breaks down between sales and marketing. In sales, there's high ticket, which is essentially one-to-one selling. It's the ability to drive a behavior through an individual exchange. And then there's low ticket, which is like one-to-many, right? Like Amazon selling thousands of things at a time. There's marketing or generating demand for a product before you have the opportunity to sell the product. I really break down at a high level into giving and asking. So there's the giving of value, and there's the asking for the transaction or the opt-in or the commitment or the interest or whatever. Value is what you give. Direct response, DR, is the context of the ask. So those are the areas that you'd want to be good at in the revenue side. In terms of fulfillment, it's basically, hey, somebody bought something. Now what do we do, right? There's product. There's what you deliver, right? And there's physical products, and there's digital products, and there's service-based products. Those are the three main product categories. There's CX or UX, customer or user experience, which is different from product, right? It's kind of how the product is delivered, how the experience of receiving and using the product goes, right? So there's onboarding a new customer, getting them into your world as a business. There's supporting that customer through their use and their experience of the product. And then there's retaining that customer. And then there's ultimately what I call the wow factor, which I think is actually its own skill set. And then business services, this is sort of my generic term for think of it as like the skeleton and the nervous system of a business, right? It's the chassis on which the business rests and operates. And the general categories here are finance, accounting, people, which HR is kind of an old school term for that, and GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance, basically how to stay in business and do things by the book. And then you have a fourth high-level category of technology, which is frankly so big, I'm not even going to attempt to unpack it at all. So a full stack entrepreneur has competence across all these areas and probably some level of detail and subspecialization within each of these areas. So that's a lot, right? Yeah, that's why they're the most powerful, capable people in the world. And by the way, I believe that I am a full stack entrepreneur, and I say powerful and capable. I mean, I have to qualify that term so it doesn't sound like I'm some kind of crazy narcissist. It's just from a utility perspective. I don't worry about what's going on in the economy. I don't ever worry about getting hired for a job. I don't worry about my ability to go out and feed my family. I don't worry about my ability to add value to virtually any enterprise that I get connected to, because of skills. Not because of pride, not because of arrogance, not because of false bravado or confidence, but just because of skills. And so what I'm going to share with you moving forward here is how I've acquired skills in all these areas and what the chronological linear journey looked like. And my intention here is, even as I'm going to show you a journey that's a decade or longer, it's longer than a decade, it's not to say, okay, so now you need to go out and take a decade to do all this. It's actually to save you time. It's to try to compress time. I want you to borrow my experience to accelerate your timeline and go faster than me. My intention here in telling you this story and sharing this journey with you is to show you how the skills stack on top of one another, both hard skills and soft skills, and ultimately stack up to the full stack that gives you a feeling of confidence bordering on invincibility. I'll qualify it a little bit, that like whatever's happening in the world, you're going to be fine. Because that's ultimately why I'm so fired up and wanting to spread the message of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial living for people. It's not because per se, I think the world needs more businesses or business owners, although I do think that we drive most of social and economic progress. It's because I think people have the best shot at achieving the best quality of life based on reduced anxiety about the future and fulfillment in the present with this way of being. So that's what the story is here. So now what I'm going to do is go mostly year by year and say what I was doing and what skills I was acquiring at that phase, and you'll see how the skills stack up. And this isn't meant to be like a paint by numbers, you need to do exactly what I did formula. This is more of just a visualization of like how the skills compound. And I think it can help you set your own arc and skills development trajectory for yourself to get as capable as possible, as confident as possible, as quickly as possible. Okay, so from 1996 to 2009, I was working as a musician. I was still working as a musician even after I started that first affiliate business in 2008. That was the span during which I had 11 failed businesses, starting when I dropped out of high school and ending with my last failure before my affiliate business. The main hard skills that I developed during that time were face-to-face sales and basic business operations, things like how to keep my books, how to use, I think I started with Quicken. I think my first accountant used Peachtree, so I learned a little bit about that, but ultimately I kind of landed in QuickBooks. I used Xero for a while, so I'm pretty facile with accounting softwares, but it's more than that, right? It's the basics around setting up payroll for somebody, basics around business banking. And I did early on get pretty proficient with Adobe Creative Suite. So like Photoshop, particularly it was Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator I got okay with. And I did have, as a musician, I had a background with recording. So like Adobe Audition and even some Adobe Premiere, I'm pretty decent with. So those were the hard skills. I'll emphasize actually the face-to-face sales, like the ability to walk in to somebody who's annoyed that I'm there, sit down with them, build rapport, warm them up, make a presentation. A few of my failed businesses involved face-to-face selling, and even though the business failed, I did succeed at developing the skills, which, by the way, is exactly the point. It's fine if your businesses fail. The only real failure is not learning. And as far as the soft skills and what I really developed during that time, which is a great foundation, it was grit and improvisation. Grit to just keep going, failure after failure, and not get discouraged. And improvisation, which was really, I adapted my skills as a jazz musician into entrepreneurship, and I sort of accepted that it's never going to go exactly the way I think it is. Like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, that's kind of what life does to you as an entrepreneur, or that's what the market does to you, and you got to improvise, right? Improvise, adapt, and overcome, like they say in the military. So 2009, got full-time serious about affiliate marketing, developed the hard skills of direct response marketing, the ability to get people to do certain things, to drive user behavior through things that happen on pages, like the written word, the spoken word, the visual, the verbal, funnel design, right? How to move people through a sequence. And then obviously pay-per-click ads, if you don't know what PPC stands for, the ability to go out and get traffic. In terms of the soft skills this developed for me, stamina. PPC ads are meticulous and unforgiving, and you have to spend hours and hours combing through all these campaigns, all these keywords, all these ad variations to find the winners and boost the winners and kill the losers. And it's kind of like searching for needles in a haystack, and you have to be very attentive to detail. And you also learn to tolerate specifically financial risk, meaning I am spending money, the money's going out, and there's no guarantee that it's going to come back. And learning to tolerate that kind of risk forces you to develop the confidence in what you're doing that, hey, I'm going to spend the money now and believe that it's going to come back later, right? And obviously these episodes didn't fall along perfect calendar lines, right? It's not like in December one thing ended and January the next thing began. This is a continuum, but I'm really trying to just organize it by year, partly to create the context of time. It really does take time to develop a lot of skills at a high level. In 2010, I built on my experience as an affiliate marketer, and I started developing the first bit of product development that I did, which were digital information-based products that were hooked into their own affiliate program. So this is when I was starting to learn how to be on the other side of affiliate marketing and actually manage an affiliate program and administer an affiliate program. I had to learn the basics of code. I had already started that in 2009, but HTML, JavaScript, CSS, server-side, PHP. And the key on all of this is learning enough to be dangerous, right? I'm probably not an expert on very much of this stuff, but I know enough, and I'll explain in a little bit why that's so important. Learning management systems, how to deliver information in a way that facilitates the consumption of that information by somebody who's moving through a learning process, right? right? And user experience, how to make it so that it's enjoyable and clear and self-evident to the user what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to go, when they're supposed to go. Essentially how to direct people anonymously through an on-page experience, right? And at that point, I was beyond what I could really do myself, and I had to really start learning how to delegate. 2011, I actually built my own affiliate marketing system. It was a training program for affiliate marketers. It also had an affiliate program. That's when I started going to therapy. I won't repeat that over and over, but just know that every year since, therapy is part of the bedrock of my growth personally and professionally. I think it's important to say, and a lot of the softer skills, especially that I'm going to get into later in my career arc, are really, really rooted in just being good with people and being a good person and the kind of stuff that you work on in therapy, not so much in business. Hard skills, at that point, because we had our own marketing system, I really had to start to understand the mechanics of sales pipelines, sales staging, how to manage people through a long-form sales process, and to actually design full-fledged curriculum, not just a course, but a series of courses to actually teach what I was trying to teach through affiliate marketing. And I started to get into educational theory and really learning how people, not just how people consume information, but how to get that information to stick, how people learn. From a soft skills perspective, because I was now training affiliate marketers, I was training people on how to market and sell. So it was my first step from beyond selling into sales training and training people how to sell, and really into teaching as a whole, how to deliver information in a way, hopefully just like I'm doing now, where people can really get a lot out of it. Okay, next year after that, 2012, I created my first B2B product or service. If you don't know what that term means, it means business to business. Prior to that, I had been selling B2C, business to consumer, as an affiliate marketer, first products and services, and then ultimately my training on how to be an affiliate marketer. 2012, I started planting the seeds that would become my agency and actually providing services for businesses. Completely different psychology, completely different skill set to do business with other businesses rather than consumers. I started to build a piece of software. This was 2012, so this was like pre-sales funnels, but it was post-static web pages. There was kind of this awkward in-between phase for a few years on the internet where we didn't have all the funnel builders like we have now. We didn't have ClickFunnels. We didn't have lead pages. We didn't even have the site builders like Wix or Web.com or Weebly or Squarespace or whatever. And so I kind of started building an early iteration of that, specifically for small businesses to be able to publish web pages that looked a little better than total crap. So I learned how to design software and actually lead developers. And then I also got good specifically at B2B phone sales, different types of conversations with different conversational dynamics, how to tailor conversations. I would say prior to that, I was a one-size-fits-all conversationalist. Everyone was a nail and I was a hammer. I think I learned how to get more nuanced in selling in 2012. 2013, I formally launched that agency, which meant I now had to hire. I actually opened up a physical office. First time I actually ever left the house to go to work since I had a summer job when I was 16, and built out an office. I did all the networking myself. I ran the cables in the ceiling, and my daughter helped me paint it and so forth. But I had to hire a team. I had to hire a small fulfillment team and a sales team, and I had to actually start managing a sales team. So now I wasn't just doing sales training. I was actually managing sales people. I was doing team building, and I was actually having to motivate people on a daily basis because phone sales is hard work, and you got to keep the energy up, right? 2014, I grew that agency. We crossed the 20-person threshold, and I really, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I would say by that year, that was our first 7-figure year. If you remember, I don't know, we were fulfilling dozens of customers a day, hundreds a month, thousands a year. So we had to get to where we could fulfill products and services at scale, totally different than just having a lot of one-to-one high-touch fulfillment. And I really had to learn how to build an organization and manage people within an organization and what I will sort of dreadfully call politics. 2015, we moved into a larger office. We launched our first B2B subscription product. So that meant that now we weren't just fulfilling one-time transactions, we were servicing and supporting at scale ongoing customer relationships. So now we had to worry a lot more about the customer experience on an ongoing basis and retaining those customers. And even though strictly speaking, it wasn't a software as a service product, it had a lot in common with it being B2B subscription. So I started to really delve into the early world of software as a service metrics and understanding things like customer acquisition cost, amortized over the lifetime value or the cumulative lifetime value of the customer. I started learning about churn rates and how to really build enterprise value, not just cash flow. As part of that, there was a pretty powerful shift into what I call management by data. where the business was big enough and there were enough moving parts and enough rebilling customers where people became numbers and they became data points. And fortunately, therapy was really important at this point partly because the organization had grown and partly because the customer base had grown. It really took a lot of intention around empathy to not just have everything reduced down to numbers, to like lose all the humanity from it. I'm grateful for that. 2016, I had a baby. At that time, I already had 3 kids that I adopted that were my wife's biological kids. So I was already a father to 3, but in 2016, we had our own newborn, and I actually exited the daily operations of the agency. So in that year, the agency doubled in size. I want to say it went from maybe 2 million to 4 million or 1 to 2.5 or something like that. It was a 7-figure doubling. I remember that. The coolest thing about it is I wasn't there. I left the office in July when my baby was born and I was gone the second 6 months of the year. And so there was a lot around documentation of standard operating procedures that I had to do in order to make it so that the business could continue to operate and even grow and thrive without me being present on a daily basis. And that was also when we shifted to a 2-part sales model, which was a pretty big sort of strategic up-leveling in how we sold and the experience that we created for our customers and the amount that we had to deliver between the first sale and the second sale in order to win the customer's favor and really put the value balance on their side, where we had over-delivered on the first sale so they were interested potentially in buying more from us. And again, a lot of investment in developing people during that time, not just developing great people, but finding great people in the first place. And then with the SOP documentation, ultimately there was a point I had to actually hand it off. I had to delegate and trust the people that I had invested in. And it worked. We actually ended up doubling again the next year. So if I'm going to remember the numbers, I think we went 1 to 2, 1 to a little over 2. And then in 2017 went from 2 to 4. We ultimately topped out in 2018 at about 6. That's when I sold the business. I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, we doubled the agency size again, but also because I had stepped away from the business and my daughter was, a little older, I had some bandwidth and I actually launched my first education platform. I'll call it Education Biz version 1. And that used the direct sales model, which I referenced. And it was this business that from about the middle of 2017 to the middle of 2018 is when I first achieved 8 figures. And to get to that level, and bear in mind, I still had the agency running that year. It was about 4 or 5 million run rate or 4 or 5 million in gross revenue that year. So between the two, I did probably closer to 15 million, but I had to learn about scaling businesses, building out frameworks, building out not just pathways, not just curriculum, but frameworks that could scale and expand, both frameworks for operating the business and within the education company, frameworks that I could teach that would allow people to apply what they were learning to their life and get, some sort of a predictable result. Basically, the ability to start to oversee multiple businesses, which really means getting out of the weeds and getting out of the day-to-day. In terms of soft skills, between the two companies, we employed well over 50 people. It might have even been close to 100 between the two because just the agency at that time was up around 40 or 50. And in the first year of that education business, we built a 6,300 person community. So I had to start learning how to lead a community too, essentially be a forward-facing, visible business leader and figurehead to the customer base, not just to the team. 2018, exited the agency. I actually sold it to a software company, sold the book of business. I wound down that education platform. It was going great, but frankly, it was a direct sales model. And I learned once and for all that I just don't love that business model. And I didn't really want to be involved in having to manage that part of that business, like the affiliate or distributor base. I exited the agency, had a multiple 7-figure exit. So I kind of bought myself some nice time, wound down the education business, which had really good profit margins. So I did really well in 2017 and 2018. And so by the end of 2018, I was kind of at this place where I was like, okay, what do I want to do now? And that's when I started the content project that, frankly, even this video is an extension of, and that grew into the education business version 2, which is which is the platform business. But in 2018, I really started to learn about how to build value in a business, not just income, not just how to measure it, but how to manage it, how to manage a business based around growing in value. And the reason was because I knew I wanted to try to sell the agency. So for all of 2018, I kind of got re-involved in the agency almost as a consultant going, how do we optimize this to get the maximum value through through a sale. And that ended up working pretty well. I mean, to sell a book of service-based small business contracts for a few $1,000,000 was a really nice outcome. And a lot of that was around learning how to manage the valuation in the business. A lot of that is focused on what's called Rev Ops. It's how to generate revenue without having to acquire more customers. And part of that is retention. And then with the content project, I really started to learn a lot more about the different social platforms. Particularly at the time, it was YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I've expanded from there. Soft skills, I mean, that wasn't my first exposure to what I'll call crisis management, but that was the one that had the potential to get the messiest because I was winding down the direct sales company. And essentially I was telling a bunch of people that were out there as affiliates promoting my product that, not only did I not want to do it anymore, but I didn't want them to do it anymore. I was like, I just don't want to be, I love the training, but I don't love this distribution model. And so I'm going to revoke your right to sell this. People had started to build businesses around it and didn't necessarily love that. And I had a lot of optics and reputation and human to human messiness that I had to learn to contend with, and ultimately came out of it pretty well and without really any enemies. I mean, everybody kind of understood in the end why I did what I had to do. And time management, again, winding down that one business, selling the other business, ramping up a content project that grew into the current business, plus, with a newborn at home, or in 2018, I guess she was turning 2, still being a husband and a father, really, really got pretty insane about time management. That's when I started getting up really early. I get up at 3:30 every day, and that's when that became the norm. Not an exception, but like every day without fail, that's when I get up, right? I had to learn a lot about time management and about value creation, because in the content and growing the audience and starting to put content out to the world as a complete unknown in the crazy, crowded, chaotic, frankly, somewhat hostile environment of social media, you got to give. You got to give a lot more than you ask for. I gave for a year before I ever asked for anything. And learned a lot about value creation and how to create the perception of value and giving people what they want and what they need, right? So then 2019, on the back of that, I actually launched my first retail education offer, or what we could call Education Business version 2. That's the current platform Entre. It had very humble beginnings. It was a single course that launched in July of that year. And it was really focused around how do we deliver this course to the audience through a funnel, really optimized the conversions of that funnel. I took my pay-per-click marketing skills, advertising skills to a whole other level, mostly through the Facebook ads platform. Previously, I'd been more of an expert on Google, and really got to where I knew that we had something that we could scale really big. Because at that point in my life, I only wanted to play a big game. There really wasn't a need to do something because I had to. It was more like, I want to do something because I'm really, really excited about it. And I started learning about what I call platform ethos. It's kind of related to branding, but it's sort of like branding on the inside. If branding is how your business appears to the public, platform ethos or platform concept, platform thinking is how your company feels on the inside to the customers, to the users. Apple is a great example of a platform, right? They create a pretty seamless experience across multiple touch points. They have your phone devices, you have your other devices, you have your operating system, you have your computers, your desktop machines, and it all syncs and it all flows and it all feels smooth. Even if you're on the iTunes or the Apple TV app or whatever, like it all feels a certain way, right? It all behaves a certain way, and they've kind of got their own set of expectations and their own, I don't know what you call them, macros built in, where it's like, I know that in the Apple environment, when I do this, it's going to produce this that maybe is different from other environments, right? And so really thinking about everything that I'm doing, it's mostly putting yourself in the shoes of the customer, like how to make it so that everything feels smooth, intuitive, and ideally fun and pretty cool to your customer. And then I also really got into content market interplay, or what I call two-way content theory, which is really starting to think of content creation as the initial opening of conversations and ultimately trying to produce this sort of large form dialogue between you, the creator, and the audience, the consumers. And there's a whole course I should create on that, and probably will someday. But for now, I'll just say 2019 is when I realized how serious and cool that could be. 2020, we scaled Entre 4,000%. That's when we got it up to, I think we did 52 million in revenue that year. And I also launched my podcast. In terms of hard skills and soft skills, the scaling of Entre forced a lot of skills development of just business operations, right? How to manage a business that's growing that fast, how to make sure that the wheels don't come off the wagon, and really managing all the necessary change. I think we grew that fast. We also probably, I don't even remember the numbers, doubled, tripled our team size, which wasn't nearly enough. Actually, in 2021, we ended up hiring 100 people just to kind of catch up to the growth. But from a soft skills development, I learned how to interview. Launching that podcast was incredible. I started just having really great conversations where I had to listen a lot more than I talked, which was frankly kind of new to me. Usually as the boss, people are always asking you and you're answering questions. But as the interviewer, you're answering questions and you're asking questions, you're sitting back and listening. And ultimately trying to really maximize the value of a podcast where it wasn't just one-off quality conversations, but that it was building a foundation of a network. And frankly, I knew that I was going to write a book. I knew that I wanted to launch a book. And I knew that when I did, I would want to have a network of influential people that could help me bring that book to market. And that was my original thought for building the podcast. So I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a series of great conversations, but that it was a series of building great relationships. And so I really focused on building connections and staying in touch with people and developing habits and cadences around communication and relationship nurturing. Gosh, amazing stuff. Stuff that it's frankly some of the best work that I've ever done in terms of creating value and really starting to stretch the vision of what I was doing. 2020 was the year of the P word or the C word, depending what you want to call it. And the world was going kind of nuts, but I really saw an opportunity to say, okay, because I believe in the right place at the right time with the right solution, which is entrepreneurial education. I think that is the cure for what ails so many in this topsy-turvy world where people are quitting jobs and losing jobs and the economy's messed up and inflation is coming. And it gave me a lot to put in my book, a lot to write about, and a lot to speak and teach about. But it really stretched my vision to say, it's easy to talk a good game about I'm here to make an impact and I'm here to change the world, but it really forced me to believe it, to either figure out if I believed it and that's the game I wanted to play, or if I needed to be honest with myself and declare it as something smaller. And I ultimately went with something huge. We're here to do huge work and really be a part of a transitionary chapter in world history. 2021, I guess that's last year at the time I'm recording this. Again, now it was about scaling infrastructure. The previous year we had scaled revenue. We had to do some catch up to make sure that we could actually deliver based on the volume of customers coming into the business. We hired 100 people, but even more than that, we built departments, teams, sub-departments, got really rigorous and disciplined about using project management and about communication protocols. At this point now we have, I think, 240 people in our Slack workspace as an organization. So there's just a lot of people. I think we were at probably close to 200 by end of 2021, and just getting it to where everybody knows what everybody's doing and the communication wrinkles are ironed out, so to speak. So a lot of infrastructure scaling. I grew, really focused, started thinking of the business around enterprise value where, I want to make money. I want the business to make money. But ultimately, I started to, with that stretched vision, I really got excited about this idea of building $1 billion enterprise with that $20,000 startup budget and creating this story that's pretty incredible. And then I got a book deal. So that meant that, I had to write a book. So in terms of what I learned that year, crash course in business operations, how to backfill infrastructure and processes into a company that just grew 4,000% in 12 months. Leveling up leadership. John Maxwell calls it the law of the lid, that basically the limit of your growth potential in business is your ability to lead people. And it reached a point where in order for us to continue to grow effectively, we needed to be attracting people at a certain level, at a certain caliber, with a certain experience from, certain types of companies. I mean, we've pulled people in that have worked at Coca-Cola and worked at LinkedIn. And, we have a guy right now that, just turned down an offer from Google. And I mean, we're pulling people from Fortune 500, even Fortune 100 companies. And to be able to have them come in and, I'm a jazz musician, high school dropout, maverick entrepreneur, and to actually be able to lead them and enroll them and get them excited and make them feel like it's a wise bet to bet on a smaller company with more upside at that point in their career. I had to really level up my leadership. And that's frankly both, I think, a hard skill and a soft skill. The communication, the professionalism, the way that you run meetings, the way that you show up, that's sort of the hard skill stuff. And then there's a visionary aspect to leadership, giving people like that something to be really excited about and feel like represents an opportunity that they couldn't get at a bigger company. That's a soft skill. And then I had to write a book. I actually had to figure out, again, within all the time constraints of what I was dealing with, how to actually produce a book, a really good book, frankly, a book that wouldn't require me to go out and spend $1 gazillion to get people to buy it, but that would actually be good enough that it would generate word of mouth and growth over time to hit that goal of being a #1 bestseller eventually. And then really, I would say if there was one theme of 2021, it was getting crystal clear on thinking about my brand. I say my brand, I mean both my personal brand, but also the business brand, as distinct from direct response marketing and essentially trying to get customers to do things. There's a lot more I can unpack about that, but I'll just say that was the name of the game in 2021. Frankly, if I could change anything about this whole story, it would have been understanding that that was the game to be playing many, many years earlier. I wish I had started thinking about brand sooner and not just selling stuff and acquiring customers. And then here we are, 2022 and beyond. Obsessed with brand. I'm really growing as a thought leader. These are terms that a lot of it is interwoven with identity and even some ego or sense of self. I'll just say that I really wish, again, kind of like the brand thing, I really wish that I had been thinking of myself as a thought leader and someone with really something to say that really mattered much sooner. It's taken me a while to develop the confidence and the voice to grow into that. But anyway, I'm really leaning into that now. Continuing to grow the enterprise value of Entre and also now other businesses. I've transcended into portfolio investing, so I'm now helping other people grow other businesses too. Publishing the book and everything that comes with that, speaking, media appearances and stuff. In terms of hard skills, it's really starting to think strategically about myself as a brand, which is kind of like weird and existentially disconcerting and kind of meta. It's like I'm thinking of myself just like Procter & Gamble thinks of Colgate toothpaste, right? I'm a brand, and how am I being promoted, and how is my labeling, and how is my packaging? What are my brand standards, and what are my principles, and what do I stand for, and what do I talk about, and what do I not talk about? A lot of it is addition by subtraction, right? It's getting clear on who you are and teasing out who you're not professionally as far as the market is concerned, right? Company positioning, that's really branding applied to company, whether it's attracting employees from bigger companies to want to come work here, or whether it's being positioned in the market as an alternative for somebody to say, should I go to Harvard University and study X, or should I go to Entre and learn about Y, right? Like, who are you compared to, right? Who are you positioned alongside? Who are you positioned against? And then really just leveling up sales operations at the scale that we're at, completely different world of sales operations and management, team management. That's one of our largest teams, probably all told over 50 people just on that team. From a technology perspective, frankly, we're big enough that we're a target, whether it's the hackers or the haters. There's people out there that the bigger you are, I guess, the more fun it is to try to knock you down, right? And so from both a defensive cybersecurity perspective and also just operating at the size that we are, the number of users we have puts a load strain on insufficient technology infrastructure. So we've really had to level up to make sure we can handle the volume and the capacity of not just where we are, but where we're going. And then omni-channel inbound marketing, that's sort of a broad term of like, it kind of goes with the branding piece, thinking about marketing across platforms and messaging across platforms as opposed to just the direct acquisition of customers in platform silos. And then media and production, just making sure that our stuff looks as good as we are so that we don't suffer for perception. Even this video, this exists on just my YouTube channel. It's just some basic keynote slides. I'm obviously not trying to win any design awards here, but in terms of stuff for the business, it has to look a certain way to be taken seriously. Again, that's part of company positioning. And then soft skills, messaging clarity kind of goes with brand and kind of goes with omni-channel. It's like really figuring out like, what is it that I talk about in the market? What is it that the business talks about in the market? And what is it the market wants to hear from me and the business about? There's sort of a narrowing down, but also a widening out at the same time. It's like trying to become more relevant in a broad mainstream sense, but being known for fewer things is part of how you become relevant in a broad mainstream sense. Just getting better at communication overall. A lot of that's happening on the podcast where I'm developing or I'm interviewing kind of bigger and bigger names, bigger and bigger guests. Yesterday, I interviewed Ed Milet. The day before, I interviewed a psychiatry professor from Stanford about dopamine addiction, right? I'm having conversations with really sophisticated, intelligent people, and it's forcing me to become a better communicator. I mentioned thinking about myself as a personal brand. The networking is going to a whole other level. Again, not just having conversations, but trying to create relationships with incredibly successful, incredibly busy people. And ultimately, I would package all of 2022 in this one single word, which is thoughtfulness. The more I go in business, and this is obviously the end of the chronology, but the more I go in business, the more I realize there are a very small number of non-negotiable skills that you will always find in the most successful people. And I believe that thoughtfulness is one of them. It's how people feel in interaction with you. Obviously, a ridiculous work ethic is one of them, a heart to serve, focus on delivering a value. But there's people that actually deliver value, but it doesn't always feel that great. I think thoughtfulness and really thinking about how it feels is a big piece of success. So now I'm gonna give you, honestly, don't try to digest all this right now. Like take a screenshot, take a picture with your phone. This is in sequential chronological order. These are all the hard skills that I just explained, stacked from 2009 to 2022. These are all the soft skills that I developed, stacked from 2009 to 2022. So if I were gonna sum up, what does it take to be a full stack entrepreneur? I would not at all say, like I said, this is not the one size fits all. This is not the only path to get there, right? There's always more than one way to climb a mountain, but this is one person's successful journey through acquiring a complete set of hard and soft skills to lead to a place where I can comfortably say, I do believe I'm a full stack entrepreneur. I do get paid to speak on entrepreneurship. I do get paid to come into businesses and consult. I did get a deal to write a book. I do have a podcast where I get to talk to the people that I've always wished I could talk to. And I do go through life with the confidence that whatever's going on around me, I'm going to be okay. So that is really the frame through which I'm sharing this. Here is hopefully one inspiring, encouraging example of a journey and a set of skills that you can acquire to reach the place where I don't expect anybody's life to look like my life, but I do wish for everyone that their life is as fun as my life is. And I think the biggest reason my life is so fun is because of this set of skills, the boosted confidence and the decreased anxiety that I'm able to live with every day because of this set of skills. So hopefully you found some value in that. That is my story. Thank you for listening to Zero Wisdom, what I've learned at each stage, going from 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 figures. I hope to publish an update of this in the next, I guess Entre is 4 years old. No, I guess it's 3 years old. So I've got 6 or 7 more years to update this with the 10-figure version based on my goals. I love it if you leave some comments or questions below, anything I can do. Like I said, two-way content theory, right? I want this to be a dialogue, not a monologue. Any way that I can serve or help. If you've enjoyed this, I appreciate a like. And if you think someone else might enjoy it, I appreciate a share. Thanks so much for your time. Take care. Hey, if you liked this video, then you're gonna love this video. This video is gonna be about how to increase your ability to get money if you have no money. We're gonna try to get you to a baseline where you not only have enough to live, but you actually have some surplus so that you can actually go do the awesome things that I know you're capable of.